Outdoors. I'm Dan Hook, and I'm joined today again with Evan Barker. We're going to discuss today's fishing report, and Evan's going to have a little fishing tip at the end of it. Today is November the 5th. It's 2020, and we're going to get right into what Cave Run Lake is doing and what these fish are up to here this week. The lake sits at 726 feet of elevation right now. We had a bunch of rain last week and it shot back up, and they've had a pretty hard pull on it. They were running at around 3,500 CSF up until this morning, and as of this morning they are back down to an outflow of 509. The main lake temp sets at 63.3. You have a dissolved oxygen level of 6.0 to 6.2. Just depends on where you are. Clarity on the main lake, pretty clear here right now. It's pretty clear up Beaver Creek and pretty clear up the river. You've got some decent color, but it's more of, I guess, what you say, a tannic color due to the turnover, and it's just that the fall clarity, I guess you'd say. And as the winter progresses and it gets later in the season, that'll clear out too. But you've probably got about 3 foot of visibility here now. Some of the backs of the creeks, you've got even more visibility than that. We'll get right into what the fish are doing. Crappie seem to be moving shallow right now. From the people I've talked to, we're at around 5 or 10 feet, real tight to cover. The wood primarily, and these reefs too, especially the more limmy ones. A lot of main lake reefs, especially the ones that are located near the mouths of some of the creeks and some of the coves, are doing real well right now. It's not a super bite, but people are catching fish. The big difference that I'm seeing right now, they're not having to sort through all the small fish, so the bite is mainly being your bigger crappie. 10 inches and up seems to be the deal. Most guys I know are catching around a dozen to 15 for a day's fishing, which is pretty good for this moment of the year right now. It's a pretty good live bait bite right now. Minnows, seems like the larger minnows are catching more fish, what they call your bass size crappie minnows. And as far as if you're an artificial bait type of person, grubs, the 2-inch curltail grub, a chartreuse or a black chartreuse seems to be the color of those. But again, they're at 5 to 10 feet and they're just real tight to cover. Catfish right now. Catfish are moving shallow. Haven't seen a whole lot of guys fishing lately, because seems to me more of the catfishing is taking place in the spillway, but that's been out of commission for the last week or so. What catfishing is taking place on the main lake seems to be a live bait bite, primarily goldfish, bluegills, suckers if you can get them. As far as main lake areas, backside of the flats, Tony's Cove, that's places I've seen guys fishing here of late. The muskie bite, we're kindly in the middle of the fall muskie bite right now. It's a shallow water deal. I've heard of some top water, but mainly I'm hearing there's a pretty good bite on your rubber type baits, your Medusas, your Bulldogs, that sort of thing. But here at the store, we're selling a lot more jerk baits and glide baits, especially the dive and rise type deals. Beaver Creek has been a good area, Leatherwood, Murder Branch, and of course, the flats and Scotts Creek, your usual places that your community holds, if you will. These dying weed beds seem to be the place where most of the fish are being caught right now. And as I alluded to earlier, the spillway, as long as the flow's down reasonably low, it's a pretty good place to fish just about year round. And they were running at around 3,500, and that was just pretty much unfishable. But like I said, now it's back down to around 500, and the fishing will get back on track there and in the main lake as the water level stabilizes. I know before the flow was opened up, there was a pretty diverse catch of fish down there. There was every everything being caught. There was crappie and catfish, muskie, a lot of red eyes, and even the occasional walleye with a pretty good sized one being caught down there. Evan, do you even know the size of that thing?
The walleye?
Yeah. Wasn't there one big walleye caught down there?
It was a good walleye, yeah. I guess somewhere 8 to 10 pounds in that ballpark.
And that's a really good walleye for around here. And there's always just a ton of rough fish to be caught there. Drums, carps, all that kind of thing. As far as the bait, the crappie seem to be mostly on minnows down there. If you're an artificial bait guy, a chartreuse or a pearl jig seems to work the best there right now. The crappie are being caught more up toward the wall where it wings out there, where that water first comes out of the spillway. When it's running, low like this, it seems to be the better area for people to catch. If you do fish down there when the water's running up big, the far end of the spillway on the hatchery side, that little cut that runs back in there, it's kind of a little backwater or a little eddy. That seems to be the place where everybody goes because, one, it's the most fishable place down there when the water's running up big like that. And they do catch fish there. What muskies I've heard of being caught down there, everybody typically chunks spinner baits. There are a few people that throw rubber baits down there, but most of those guys that are fishing there in the spillway, a lot of those guys are throwing spinner baits. Catfish, and they catch a ton of them down there. I haven't seen any great big ones, but there's been good numbers of them, and they'll fish primarily, if you know anything about the spillway, from the end of the walkway down toward the boat ramp, about halfway between those two, there's an area there that a lot of guys seem to catch fish out of. I know 2 or 3 friends of mine that fish that area, and they really do well down there. And like I said, we're going to have a run of really nice weather here, and I just think these fish are just going to get on the bite with this air temps warming up, and it's going to warm the water temps up a little bit. And I just think, for the next 5 or 6 days, it's going to be a real time to be out, just a real time to be here fishing. So, and even if you're not fishing, come on out and enjoy the woods. The leaves are off, so you got pretty good visibility, especially on some of these trails that overlook the lake. You've got a pretty good line of sight, and, it makes for some excellent pictures to be taken. Well, now Evan's going to give us a little update on the bass fishing here, and he's got a little tip or two in mind. He's kind of going to fill us in on at the end of all that. So here's Evan. We'll see what's on his mind today.
Back to what Dan was saying about the temperatures rising this coming week and getting the water temperatures rising a little bit. It's going to be pretty consistent, about 65 to 75 degrees for the next 5 or 6 days. The fish, the bass, they should start eating really good. They're in their traditional, fall patterns. They're in the backs of the creeks, on grass, things like that. Fishing grass anywhere from in the back of a creek to, getting on the flats and fishing that offshore grass. Your best baits are going to be, traditional fall baits. You got your square bills, spinner baits, top waters, things like that. Maybe even a jerk bait. Now the water temperature is kind of dropping a little bit. Just those traditional baits, and in, your shad patterns, your whites, silvers, silver and black, things like that. Just anything to imitate a shad are going to be the best. And kind of getting more into the grass, if you get up into the real thick grass where you can't really fish, your traditional spinnerbait, square bill, something like that, you can either take a heavier jig or like a heavier punching rig with just a tungsten weight, anything really over a half ounce to really punch into the grass. And, getting a flipping hook and, some kind of beaver bait or creature style bait like a missile D-bomb or anything like that. Those are going to be your best baits in the grass when you can't fish your square bills, spinner baits, and things like that. That's what the bass should be doing this week on Cave Run. I'll kind of go into a fishing tip.
One thing, if someone was coming to Cave Run this weekend, what area would you recommend them going to right off the bat? Sorry to interrupt, but I was just curious.
Ralph, I've heard that the flats, they're always holding fish. It's just kind of the main community hole in the lake. There's always fish to be caught there. So, if I was going to just start out fishing one day this weekend, or anytime with the warming water, I'm going to start out on the flats, either in the shallower grass up on top of the humps, or I'll get out with my graph or something like that and look for a little bit deeper grass in that.
Sure.
The deepest grass that grows on the lake, is in about the 14 foot at most, but most of your deep grass is in the 10 to 12 foot zone.
Sure.
And that's your better grass, your milfoil, hydrilla, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the kind of grasses that bass they lean more towards living there instead of just I kind of call it pondweed or wavy leaf, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Just that grass you mainly see everywhere that just kind of clumps up.
Right.
The bass, they'll still live around that and use it, as a good place to ambush bait, but they're really more often than not wanting to live around the hydrilla or the milfoil.
Okay. Now back to your fishing tip.
All right, so my fishing tip this week is going to involve two things. It's going to involve topwater fishing, and it's going to involve what you should do if you're fishing a topwater and a bass misses your bait. So you're fishing down the bank, throwing this implies to really any kind of topwater, but what I've seen mostly this applies to buzz baits and whopper ploppers, things that you're moving really fast, and it's easy for those fish to miss a bait like a buzz bait or whopper plopper when you're fishing them that fast. But it applies to any kind of topwater. So you're fishing down a bank, fishing your topwater, and a bass comes up and misses it. What do? Most people are going to throw that topwater straight back in there and try and get that fish to eat it again. But what I've found more times than not, unless that fish is either in a school or it's wolf packing, something like that, that fish isn't going to eat that topwater again. Mm-hmm. What you want to do is anytime you have a topwater tied on, have some kind of follow-up bait tied on as well. And any kind of my main follow-up bait that I always have tied on is just a wacky rig on a spinning rod. Mm-hmm. It's really simple. And for anybody who doesn't know what a wacky rig is, it's just a Senko style bait, like a Gary Yamamoto Senko Yum Dinger or something like that. And it's just you have it on this small, like a size 1 or size 2 mosquito style hook, or almost like a drop shot style hook, just a really small hook, and you just hook that worm right through the middle, and it just has a big wobble in action in the water. Mm-hmm. And what you do is after that fish misses the topwater, what I'll do is I'll throw that wacky rig right back into where that fish just missed the bait. And more times than not, I would definitively say 9 times out of 10 that fish is going to eat it. Mm-hmm. And what they think is when they miss that topwater, they think that they've just stunned a bait fish, a bluegill, shad, something like that. And then you throw that wacky rig or something like that back in there, and it's just kind of, just free falling really slow. And it just looks like something that's been stunned, and they'll come back and then they'll eat it because it's an easy target at that point. Other follow-up baits that I've used and seen other people use, when you're more on a specific shad style pattern, when you're fishing, a spook, popper, something like that, what I've found to be best is to follow up with a fluke. And fluke's just it's just a Zoom super fluke. Everybody's seen them, and you just rig it up on a 3/0 EWG worm hook. It's weightless, so you just throw it right back in there where the fish missed the topwater, and you just jerk it real slow, makes it look like a shad. It's just kind of it's still alive, but it's in the process of dying. And that just makes a really easy meal for the bass. And then another bait to use, it's along the same lines of a fluke, but just a little bit different. It's a jerk bait. It does the exact same thing. Most people call some people call fluke just a soft jerk bait. So they really do the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. That just kind of boils down to your personal preference, whether you want to tie on the fluke or whether you want to tie on the jerk bait for your follow-up bait.
Does color play a role in, like, say, if you're throwing that Senko type lure or whatever, does color make a difference? I mean, are you going to have something similar in the color to like the buzz bait or the topwater you're throwing, or are you just going to go like a standard green pumpkin or a June bug or something like that?
To me, on my wacky rig Senko, it really doesn't make a difference. I'll just throw really anything natural anything that I have in the boat. You know, most of the time I'm throwing either a watermelon red or a green pumpkin Senko.
Right.
But you know, when you go into the jerkbait and fluke category, most of the time you're going to be throwing, you know, a pearl, a white, something like a white and silver.
Something that's more of a natural color.
Yeah, something more of a natural shad color. Okay. And most of the time when I'm fishing, like I said earlier, if I'm fishing a popar or a spook or something like that imitates more of a shad, that's when I'll throw that fluke or the jerkbait that also imitates more of a shad. That's kind of, I try to keep it as simple as possible. You know, you just kind of have those two different categories when choosing a follow-up bait.
Sure.
But, you know, just keep it simple. And, you know, I'm not saying that a wacky rig won't work if you throw it behind a fish that missed a spook or a popper. But what I've found to be better is to throw a fluke or a jerkbait, something that imitates a shad like it just thought it ate.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's good stuff. Well, folks, we're in for a stretch of really nice weather coming up here at Cave Run for the next 5 or 6 days. So, you know, who knows, this time of year, we don't get many opportunities like this. And, you know, the lake's in good shape right now. It's pretty clear. The elevation is going to be pretty stable from here on out. You know, they're going to draw about an inch a day, like we said, till they get to their target level here December the 15th, I think it is. So, you know, folks, just try to get out and enjoy it while you can. And like we say, just get outdoors with Hook Outdoors.